They said American dive bombers could not simply disappear in daylight, yet the spotters on Nauru swore the sky above them had been empty. They scanned every direction, shielding their eyes with their hands, searching for the hard-edged silhouette of an SBD Dauntless. Nothing, only the burning Pacific sun. Then the ground shook. Bombs slammed into fuel dumps and gun pits, and when the defenders finally looked up again, the Dauntlesses were already pulling away, dozens of them climbing toward the glare as if they had materialized from the light itself. Reports from other islands soon told the same story. These American dive bombers did not just attack. They arrived unseen, concealed not by clouds or altitude, but by a trick so effective it turned them nearly invisible to anyone relying on the naked eye. For a moment, even Allied commanders doubted the accounts. Aircraft did not vanish, but pilots insisted the method worked. When flown with discipline, the Dauntless could hide inside a narrow cone of sunlight, its outline erased until seconds before the dive. It became one of the quiet secrets of the Pacific Air War. Simple, repeatable, and devastatingly effective. Keep watching, because the next part reveals why this impossible-sounding trick mattered more than anyone realized. Long before the trick gained its quiet reputation, the Pacific War had already become a contest of eyesight. Japanese garrisons relied heavily on spotters perched on cliffs, radio towers, and ship masts, trained to detect the smallest movement against the open sky. A few seconds of warning could mean the difference between manned guns and chaos. For American dive bombers, especially the rugged but slow SBD Dauntless, this vigilance was a constant threat. The aircraft excelled in a steep dive, but on approach it was exposed, its engine noise carrying far across water, its silhouette unmistakable against the bright horizon. The Pacific environment made everything harder. The sun sat low and harsh during long hours of the day, reflecting off the sea in dazzling sheets of white. Heat shimmer distorted distance. The blue-gray camouflage of American aircraft helped only slightly. Once a spotter caught a glimpse of wings or tail, every gun on the island prepared for the incoming strike. Many early missions saw Dauntless squadrons forced into wide detours, weaving through cloud banks or hugging low altitudes just to delay detection. This was the reality facing naval aviators in the years 1942 and 1943. Surprise was precious, often impossible, and every pilot understood that the first sighting usually belonged to the defenders. Against this backdrop, the idea that an aircraft could exploit sunlight itself to remain unseen sounded unbelievable, yet the conditions were perfect for someone to discover it. Lieutenant Walter Brooks was not the kind of aviator people expected to reshape tactics. He was quiet, precise, and unusually observant, the sort of pilot who noticed details others dismissed. The breakthrough began almost by accident. During a training approach near Kaneohe Bay, Brooks returned from a navigation drill with the early afternoon sun directly behind him. When he rolled to a stop on the strip, the ground instructors walked toward his plane, shaking their heads. They told him they had lost sight of him entirely. One moment he was a distant speck, the next he was almost overhead. They insisted he had appeared out of the sun. Brooks laughed it off, but the remark stayed with him. Over the next several days, he began experimenting. He repeated the same approach at slightly different altitudes, adjusting his pitch and banking angle by small increments. Each time he aligned himself perfectly with the sun, the observers failed to track him. Intrigued, Brooks brought in his crew chief, a patient mechanic who had spent years tinkering with lenses and mirrors. Together they conducted informal optical trials, watching other Dauntlesses enter the same flight path. They noticed how the aircraft's navy blue-gray paint absorbed most of the sky's tones while reflecting only sharp fragments of sunlight. At a specific combination of height, heading, and descent rate, the Dauntless blended almost completely into the glare. The wings dissolved, the fuselage washed into the haze, and the turning propeller left no discernible pattern for the human eye to anchor to. What they had uncovered was not camouflage in any traditional sense. It was a natural optical dead zone, a place where sunlight, atmospheric scatter, and aircraft geometry combined to erase a visual target from anyone standing below. Brooks compiled notes, sketches, and timing estimates before presenting the findings to his commander. The squadron conducted structured trials, flying in groups to test whether the effect worked for an entire formation and not just one plane. It did. consistently. Even veteran observers lost sight of the aircraft until they burst from the sunlight into their dives. Find out how this discovery changed the way American dive bombers approached real combat. Training the squadron to use the sun cone tactic proved harder than discovering it. Pilots were accustomed to adjusting their approach based on weather, enemy patrols, and radio instructions, not on the precise geometry of light. Lieutenant Brooks and his commander began each briefing with the same instruction. The sun was now part of the formation. Every aircraft had to hold its place relative to it just as tightly as to the plane flying beside them. The slightest drift left or right could pull a bomber out of the glare zone and expose it to watchful eyes below. The first combat trial took place during a strike on a fortified atoll in the Central Pacific. The formation climbed higher than usual, settling into a long, measured approach with the sun positioned squarely behind them. The pilots flew quietly, resisting the urge to brake early or correct instinctively. They trusted the calculations, the angles, and the strange feeling of flying toward an enemy who, for once, could not see them coming. When they finally rolled into their dives, enemy gunners reacted a full 5 to 10 seconds later than expected, a lifetime in aerial warfare. Bombs fell cleanly, gun positions erupted, and the Dauntlesses pulled out with minimal damage. The after-action reports confirmed the effect. Early detection had been nearly non-existent. In the following weeks, more squadrons incorporated the tactic, refining approach routes so that the sun became a deliberate shield. The maneuver was not officially classified, but within Navy circles it quickly evolved into a trusted and quietly celebrated advantage. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another hidden chapter of wartime ingenuity. The success of the sun cone tactic became measurable almost immediately. After the first missions using Brooks' approach pattern, squadron intelligence officers compared enemy reaction times with earlier strikes. Japanese spotters who normally identified incoming aircraft minutes before an attack were now sounding alarms far too late for defensive batteries to respond. In some engagements, anti-aircraft crews never saw the Dauntlesses until the moment the bombers peeled into their dives. This delay did more than protect the attacking pilots. It dramatically improved bombing accuracy by preserving formation integrity all the way to the dive point. Pilot reports across the Pacific echoed the same observation. Flying in the sun's blind zone felt like moving through an empty corridor, untouched by the watchers below. Records from 1942 to 1944 show a clear pattern of missions where reduced detection aligned with sun angle approaches. Even as Japanese ships began adopting more radar sets, operators frequently struggled to separate glare reflections from real aircraft in sun-facing sectors, further amplifying the effect. Enemy diaries and interrogation notes after the war confirmed the confusion. Many defenders believed the Americans had developed a new kind of camouflage paint or mechanical device. None suspected the truth, that the tactic relied entirely on physics and disciplined flying. The sun cone method spread quietly through dive bomber units and became one of the subtle reasons the Dauntless earned its reputation as a precision weapon of the Pacific. The sun cone tactic never appeared in headlines, technical journals, or post-war training manuals, yet its impact lingered in the memories of the men who flew the Dauntless. It succeeded because it required no redesign, no new equipment, and no classified technology. Instead, it turned an everyday obstacle, the blinding Pacific sun, into a weapon. Pilots later described the moment of discovery not as an innovation but as a realization, the kind that emerges only when people under pressure see familiar conditions in an unfamiliar way. After the war, the aviation world changed rapidly. Radar replaced human lookouts. Jets replaced propeller-driven aircraft. Combat shifted from low-altitude approach runs to engagements decided at distances where the naked eye no longer mattered. In that new environment, the logic of the sun cone faded. Future pilots trained for electronic screens, not the geometry of sunlight or the subtle distortions of haze. What had once been a powerful battlefield advantage became a footnote known mainly through oral accounts, folded into the broader legacy of naval aviation. Yet the method remains a quiet example of wartime ingenuity. It showed that even in an era defined by rapid technological escalation, simple insights could still shape the outcome of a mission. A pilot who understood how an enemy looked at the sky could turn that knowledge into survival. And for a time in the Pacific War, American dive bombers truly did slip into the sun and emerge only when it was too late to stop them.